How's it going, everyone? Dylan and I are back with another episode of our podcast, our third episode. We are 3 weeks in, grinding out, doing great. In this one, we're going to recap the divisional round, the four divisional round games that took place. Then we're also going to preview the two conference championship games. So, I guess we'll just start in order with my favorite team, the Chiefs, taking on the Texans. So that game, kind of like the Chiefs have played all year through three quarters. Ugly performance, but they were up. Texans were outgaining them yardage wise. What a surprise! Get two controversial calls that were clearly not the right calls, even though the VP of officiating came out the next day said they were correct, which is absolutely ridiculous. Then the fourth quarter, the Chiefs just kind of pulled away, but honestly, it was closer than I was expecting.
Yeah, I actually expected kind of a little bit of this. I did think that they would win by two scores, but 9 points. I mean, that's a little closer than I had it. I had it a little bit more than that. But I did expect uh, Patrick Mahomes to uh, do exactly what he always does and rely on Travis Kelce. And in a big game, in a playoff game, he would hit up all reliable, and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes had a good connection. Travis Kelce had, I think, 117 yards, a touchdown, and nine catches or eight catches or something like that. So, I mean, that's exactly what I kind of expected him to go back to all reliable, and they came out with the win at Arrowhead.
Yeah, it always boggles my mind how it seems like Kelsey, like it's just always when he makes a catch, he's always like wide open, like completely uncovered. I'm like, how the hell do you like leave this guy wide open every single time, not like
Yeah,
double him every snap?
it's crazy because he's like a big bodied wide receiver, but he just plays the tight end position, right? So it's just incredible how this guy can operate and get open. And everybody knows he's the number one option, but it's hard to even cover him because he's just so big and so large, and he's good at moving his body at freaking like what 35 years old now. So
Yeah,
it's crazy what he's still able to do at this age.
yeah. Yeah, the two controversial calls, I mean, I think they were completely wrong, but would the Texans have won had they not been called? No, I think the Chiefs definitely still would have won the game. But I mean, the second one was just I don't even know which one was. At least the first one, like in game time, like when they showed the full time replay, it looked like Mahomes got like slammed in the helmet, and then when they slowed it down, it's like okay, yep, didn't get hit in the helmet, but I think because they already threw the flag, they couldn't pick it up. The second one was ridiculous, but the second one, I felt like they were going to score anyway. They were moving the ball, so that one I wasn't as pissed off as. Especially because the first one, it was third down, they were going to get the ball back. The Texans, it was 3-3. Chiefs got three out of it. But yeah, two, what a surprise. Egregious calls in the Chiefs' favor.
Yeah, it's crazy because I agree though. I agree that the Chiefs definitely played better than the Texans this game, but I do agree that the Texans, I mean, the Chiefs did get a couple calls that was like, okay, is Vegas calling or like what's going on here, right? I will say that the Chiefs did play better, and I think that's why it resulted in the win. You could that double hit where they thought it was head-on collision with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, yeah, I mean in real time, it probably did look like that to the ref's eyes, but when you slow down and look at the replay, it looked worse than it actually was for actually the two defenders, and it was actually Patrick Mahomes in general. So it's pretty crazy how we're all worked out like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're playing the Chiefs, you just have to know, like, some calls aren't going to go your way. You have to play an elite game, and the Texans were far from that, and that's why I think that they lost.
Yeah, I don't think the refs cost the Texans the game. I mean, those two penalties I think were wrong, but again, like I said, I think the Chiefs would have won. But you had Mixon, Will Anderson, those two directly said like, "Yep, we knew we were competing against the refs." D'Amico Ryan's kind of said it like he didn't say it directly, like indirectly. He said we knew we were going to be going up against everyone, and I think Stroud kind of said it indirectly too. I mean, I'm a Pats fan, so of course my team we got some beneficial calls when we were actually like a competent football team for 20 years. But to this level, maybe I'm biased. I do not think we got it to this level. Like every single game, the Chiefs seemingly get at least one like egregious call to go in their favor. And like social media, when we were good and we would get like a BS call, I do not remember social media being like this on like the refs about it as much as they are with the Chiefs. So it's good to see the Chiefs slander.
Yeah, it is pretty funny how everybody was on the Chiefs with social media and stuff. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, like we can't wait to see the Bills beat the Chiefs or anything like that." But it is crazy how much of a hate fan base has come from this Chiefs team. It's actually pretty funny to see. But
Yeah,
another thing about this game, and I was pretty surprised about, is DeAndre Hopkins. He got no catches in this game, which he had like 3 targets or something. So I mean, you talk about like veterans kind of stepping up and stuff. He didn't really step up in this game, but they didn't need it at the end of the day. So Travis Kelce was open and Patrick Mahomes made it work and they came out on top. Um, yeah, I mean, it really was like a weird game. This one was kind of a weird game because there wasn't like a lot of rushing yards. It's funny how Xavier Worthy finished with -8 yards. And that's just insane. Like, I don't, that's insane for one carry for -8 yards in this game. So
yeah,
it's pretty remarkable how the Chiefs pulled this off with just the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce show. I mean, like 75% of Patrick Mahomes' uh, passing yards came from Travis Kelce, which is crazy. It's insane. So
yeah.
tells you about the connection that those two have and how much confidence they have going into this stretch that they got going on.
Yeah, if you just look at like the team stats for this game, you didn't know the final score, you'd be like, all right, there's surely the Texans pulled off the upset. But I saw the Texans were the first team. They were like 49-0 previous to this game. They were the first loss in like NFL history. I forget the exact stat, but it was like they outgained their opponents by this much. They had like this much less penalties, something weird like that. They were like the only team ever to lose a game like that. I'm like, of course, the Chiefs are on the beneficiary side of that.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy with 5 receptions for 45 yards. The rushing, he rushed for -8 yards, and Matt
Yeah,
Ariza rushed for -18 yards. So it's pretty crazy how they were still getting pushed back, and the receiving helped them down the field and stuff with the passing game. So it's pretty remarkable how they operated and contributed to this win. But there is some controversy with that, but whatever.
yeah. Yeah, I think we all expected the Chiefs to win, but just the way the game went, it was just a weird. It was like 12-13, and then I think once Mahomes hit Kelsey on that touchdown, it's like, all right, yep, the Chiefs are probably gonna pull away with this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, that's pretty much solidified it. And it was like, all right, well, Chiefs again to the AFC Championship
Yeah.
game again.
Or when the Texans, the opening drive, the second half, they had a 10-plus minute drive. That was another BS call. I think it was Xavier Hutchinson. It was like second lawn. He got the first, clearly got the first, and they marked it short. And then they got a false start. I'm like, yep, here we go. Then Stroud scrambled for it anyway. But yeah, they scored. They were going to tie it. Then Fairbairn missed an extra point. I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me with the Chiefs again. It was the same thing the regular season. They wrote to tie it. Tank Dell gets hurt, and then they missed the extra point there.
It's
Uh,
so fun. They just find ways to win football games. Like the Chiefs just find ways to win, whether it's with the refs, whether it's with um Mahomes doing something and flopping and getting a call. Like it's just insane. Is the rushing game? Is it the short intermediate passes? Like every single time they just find ways to win these one score games. Missed extra points, missed field goals. It's insane. So I understand the frustration if you're a Chiefs hater, but I mean, it's remarkable to just even see them like move on to the AFC Championship this many times in a short amount of time.
yeah, they're one behind Pats. We get what, 8 in a row, and I think this is their seventh. So they make it next year. God help us. Um, oh, the Lions Commanders. That was the next one. So that was Jesus. I mean, talk about a shootout.
Yeah.
I Geez, I mean, that offense, the Commanders looked like the greatest show on turf that game. I mean, that was ridiculous. I think most people, probably like 80% of people, were picking the Lions, but we thought it could be like relatively close. Just the way the game was like presenting itself. It was like I don't think many people expected it. Like the Lions trailing down 2 scores, a good portion of it, just a shootout, kind of a weird game.
Yeah, and it's funny how we were talking about this game, and I said one of the keys to victory of this game was for what? It was for the Commanders to stay aggressive, right? And they just had their foot on the gas pedal the entire day. I literally called this. I said this is going to be a shootout. I said we could see Jaden Daniels shooting for like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, something like that. And he finished with 299 and 2 touchdowns. So I said if they stay aggressive and they keep the foot on the gas pedal the entire game, I mean, like you said, they were up by 2 scores at certain points. They were up by like seven most of the time. Like it's incredible. Like this Commanders team, and it's just this team continues to get slept on, and they're getting slept on again against one of the most overrated teams in the playoffs with the Eagles. But like that's what I'm saying is they kept their foot on the gas pedal and they just pushed through and got the win. And for this NFC Championship game coming up, we'll preview that later. But it's crazy how disrespected the Commanders are still. I think they're 6 point underdogs or something
Yeah,
weird like that. Like they just beat one of the best teams in the NFC with the Lions, who had 2 losses on the season. I don't see how they cannot beat the Eagles if they were given like this same style of play the way this did against the Lions. So it's insane. Um, of course, Terry McLaurin finally has a quarterback. A guy that has kind of been on like the bottom tier receivers that people haven't really given recognition to, and he's completely showing why he's a top 10, top 15 receiver in this league. He's making a stamp on the playoffs, and it's all because of one man, and it's Jaden Daniels. So, and the way
yeah,
that this offensive line has played, I understand that Detroit doesn't have premier edge rushers. 0 sacks on Jaden Daniels in this game. Zero,
yeah,
which is remarkable. I mean, the offensive line just played cohesively as a unit and solidified Jaden Daniels' time in the pocket, looking down the field to Terry. It looked really good to see Jaden Daniels kind of just survey the defense with no time. It's almost like a Jalen Hurts, but instead of sliding 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he actually looked downfield and tried to create yards and I think he had like good rushing yards. I think he was like 50 yards
yeah.
rushing in this game. So, I mean, you talk about a dual threat quarterback and the way he's pushing the ball down the field, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, Brady and Kevin Burkhardt talked about it during the broadcast, but they were talking about how like just cool, calm Jane Daniels is. Like divisional round, on the road against the 1 seed, you're kind of playing with house money. Most people are expecting you to lose. A decent amount of people expecting you to not get blown out, but like, the Lions win comfortably. Not much of a chance, and you just went in and just absolutely played his ass off. He was very decisive with his reads too. It seemed like he was not holding the ball on. Like you say, he had a couple nice scrambles. Just very impressive. I mean, I think if they beat Philly, he'll be the first rookie to start in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, they've
Yep.
overachieved. They're in a rebuild. They're in year one of a rebuild, and they're one win away from making the Super Bowl.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Coaching. Kingsbury came in from a college style offense, and he's just playing to Jaden Daniels' strengths. So, like, that's why they're moving so far in the playoffs, and that's why Jaden Daniels looks good, and that's why they're in the NFC Championship game. Is because Cliff Kingsbury is playing to Jaden Daniels' strengths, and it's really cool to see how coaching, even not even with the best talent, um, translates into a good team. Like it's just how it works in the NFL. It's not always about talent. In NFL, it's about coaching. It's about, like I said countlessly, clock management. It's also like that's the kind of game that we have now, and it's not like the NBA. Okay, it's not like the NHL where talent can win you games. The NFL is about coaching. So coaching and team building and playing to people's strengths is how you win football games. Sometimes it's not only always the best talent that gets you far.
Yeah, yeah. What the Commanders are doing and how they won this game was just, and they could have, they were in danger of being down 2 scores early. That a lot of people are on Ben Johnson for this game, saying his head wasn't in it because obviously he just took the Bears gig, but he had yesterday, I'm pretty sure. So. A lot of people were saying his head wasn't fully in the game. Uh,
Um, that's funny you said that because not to cut you off, but Bill Belichick said the same thing. I don't know if you saw, but he did say something about how it could be a huge distraction to get all this publicity and media knowing that you're one of the top candidates for a head coaching job, right? And you have a big game coming up in the divisional, and it seems like the Lions kind of took them a little more lightly, right? I mean, it seems like they could have really put the pressure on, Jaden Daniels, maybe more preparation for this game. So is there a lack of um, you know, preparation for this game? That's the thing is, was there a lack of preparation? And does that fall on Ben Johnson because he was getting calls all the time in interviews and, doing all these things? And that's the problem is I completely agree with Belichick when he says that he doesn't like how head coaching interviews go on during the playoffs. I completely agree. I think it's a huge distraction. I think all that should be handled at the end of the season. But I mean, I completely agree with him. I know some people don't agree with him. I completely agree with him on this one.
yeah, I agree with Belichick too. I mean, it just distracts I don't think, Ben Johnson like interviewing being a top tier coaching candidate like cost them this game, but it definitely can be a distraction. And it's like, let's say a team goes to the Super Bowl. That's what, 3 weeks from now? It's like, what the hell is another 3 weeks waiting? Like, instead of all the distraction, just wait till the season ends. And then not only the coaches, the players too, because it's like, oh, my coordinator might be gone. So that might screw with their heads. Yeah, I agree that they should push it till after whatever team their season's done with.
Yeah, and there was a big problem with the Eagles fans talking about Jonathan Gannon in that Super Bowl because he got the Arizona coaching job. And the Eagles fans were mad. They were pissed because, I mean, Jonathan Gannon did not draw up a good game plan against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, he's getting all these coaching interviews and he wants to leave, he was leaving Philly. And the Eagles fans were just blown away. I know Eagles Sports Radio was going crazy at like asking like why would he do this? Like just keep him in Arizona. Like don't even bring him back to Philly. Like people were upset and I don't really blame them. And I hate Eagles fans strictly. But I
Yeah,
will say that I completely agree. Like you have a preparation like to win the Super Bowl and you're taking head coaching interviews and stuff like that when you're versing Patrick Mahomes. Like it's just preparation for games is so essential. And the fact that they have guys that are, taking head coaching interviews and defensive coordinator interviews and all this stuff, like when your season's not over yet, I completely disagree with it.
yeah. It's the same thing with Aaron Glenn. Obviously, the defense did not play well at all, and he just took the Jets job yesterday. So you can say the same thing with him. I don't think Ben Johnson called an awful game. There definitely were a couple, probably like two in my head. They were up 7-3. They were moving the ball. Looks like they were about to go up 14-3, and he ran an empty set on third and short, and Goff fumbled it. That could have changed the game there. And then late when they were down 10, kind of the way their defense is playing, you figured technically they could have gotten a field goal to keep it a one-score game, but you probably figured they needed to get a touchdown. And he ran that trick play. Jamison Williams threw the pick. It's like, was that really the right time for it? But then again, if that would have worked, no one would have said anything. But
Right. Right.
yeah,
And I hate that. I hate the third and short, fourth and short, empty backfield set. I can't believe I hate that stuff
yeah,
because I'm more of like the old school kind of guy where, you throw a Brandon Jacobs or you throw like a big back there and run the ball I formation right down the middle with your best big running back. If you need like inches, if you need a yard, if you need even 2 yards, you line up I formation, you push it right through the center of the line. Just go vertical instead of horizontal. A lot of these guys now we see, third and short, fourth and short, like take tosses and like trying to get guys like break into the outside. Whereas like I'm more of the old school kind of guy and I just like I formation running it down the middle. But that's how I think it's hard when you're playing football and you kind of realize like, oh, I'm a linebacker, I have to fill that gap. But I mean, I think we see a little bit with that with Shanahan because I think Kyle Juszczyk does a good job of, he's one of the best fullbacks in the league. He does a good job of f filling gaps and taking on a linebacker. Meanwhile, the Christian McCaffrey or Mason's looking for, other spots to go, but different point of view. But I'm more of the old school kind of, you know, put the head down, get the first down, move the sticks. That I don't know why you would ever realistically go empty set unless you were looking for like a jet sweep, but then I don't know, it kind of shuffles the linebackers where they can shuffle and move their feet to see where the jet sweep's going. And then I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan. Just run the ball, get vertical.
Yeah. My guess is his mindset was obviously the Lions are like as aggressive as you can get with Campbell over there. Third and one, usually like let's say third and seven, like maybe not third and one, like third and medium, they run it a lot, just try to get some yardage. They're gonna go for it on fourth down, probably passing it. Maybe it was kind of the opposite. We're gonna take a shot here. If we don't get it, we'll just run it in fourth down. But what you just said about like the outside zones and stuff on like third and fourth and short, I went on a rant on it, one of my videos, made two of them. I hate calls like that, like especially when it's inches. Just like you said, just QB sneak it, just run it up the middle, something basic, just get the first down. Because my problem with it is, let's say it's a toss or a stretch or even a jet sweep. So you're handing the ball off behind the line of scrimmage and you're relying on your blockers to just hold all the blocks. All it takes is just one guy on the defense to just beat his man blocking, and then you're gonna have to make the whoever's the ball improvise it behind the line of scrimmage too. I hate it. That the Falcons did that multiple times. It was fourth and inches. They ran an outside jet sweep, and I'm like, what are we doing, Falcons? Zach Robinson. I'm like, what are we doing? I hate
Yeah,
it. I
I
hate it.
can't stand it either. I really hate it. It's just something I'm not, I hate. I hated it ever since. I've seen these guys in Brian Daboll's scheme. I've seen like a jet sweep with Matt Breida when there's Barkley in the backfield and stuff. I hate it. I can't stand it. Just give the ball to your best player, run it behind your best offensive lineman in the middle, and get the first down.
Yeah, and nothing. The Lions offense actually hit a good game. They put up 31. They hit a bunch of yards. The problem was Goff had three three picks and the fumble, so four turnovers, and two of them were in the end zone too. So the Lions defense obviously played awful, but when your quarterback is turning the ball over four times, it doesn't help much either.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like you can't have those turnovers. And that's the thing. Like I had a Commanders fan who was telling me that their corners are pretty underrated too. Sorensen, I think his name is, the rookie out of Michigan.
Mhm.
He's having a very underrated year, but nobody's talking about it. But everybody's talking about Quinyon Mitchell from the Eagles, but nobody's talking about Sorensen. This dude's nasty. And he's done a very good job this year of taking on a huge role in that defense. So, I mean, of course, with Dan Quinn, he puts players in the best positions to, get that second contract and do good. But I mean, this guy has been a stud this year, and I mean, it seems like they have that guy for the future too. So
Yeah. So yeah, the six-seeded Commanders upsetting the Lions, 15 win Lion, 14 win Lions, moving on to the conference championship. So that's insane. Um, what Rams Eagles, that was the next game. So yeah, this one kind of low scoring. Uh, you know, Honestly, this to me was kind of a coin flip game. I was tempted to pick the Rams. I picked the Eagles, but it was low scoring. The Rams defense, I think the Rams defense actually played a good game outside of those two Barkley runs, which obviously, I can't disregard that. But besides those two plays, I think they actually played a good game, kept it close. They got a safety. The Rams nearly came back at the end. I thought they were going to honestly win the game. And then Jalen Carter came in basically unblocked. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's a problem. Eagles held on. Kind of an ugly win, but they held on.
I don't understand because this team is the worst team in the playoffs right now, in my opinion. I think that the Eagles are so fraudulent. And the reason why is because of this quarterback. Okay. This guy is not a good quarterback. And it's been proven time and time again. You give the ball to Saquon Barkley, and this guy will produce with yards, right? This guy is incredible. It's not about Jalen Hurts handing the ball off. It's about what he does with the ball in his hands. And this is the problem I have with Jalen Hurts. There was 20 passes in this game that Jalen Hurts had. How many of them do you think resulted in sacks? I'm asking you that. How many do you think resulted in
Uh, I think what they get 7, 8 sacks, something like that.
seven?
Yeah,
7 sacks out of 20 dropbacks. That's like 45% like sack rate when he drops back to pass with the best offensive line in the country. I mean, this offensive line's incredible. Like we talked about it last week, like Saquon hasn't been touched like 4 yards down the field, and now Jalen Hurts drops back to pass, and he's getting sacked 45% of the time. You might as well just stick to running the football because, I mean, if the Eagles are not ahead against the Commanders in the next round, uh, there's going to be some problems because if the Commanders stop this run game, I don't think Hurts is going to deliver in the big situations. And I I just don't believe in him. I've never believed in him. I think he's trash, and I will continue to say that. I've said that. I actually said this for like 2 years before this, 2 or 3 years before this. I was telling everybody that Jalen Hurts is not that good. And this game solidifies why he's not that good. Saquon Barkley's a stud behind that offensive line, and I knew he would take off like pretty well because our offensive line in New York Giants on the New York Giants team was awful for years. He finally has a great offensive line now in Philly, and he's putting up numbers. But I don't know. It's a one-dimensional team, in my opinion, and I think everybody knows if you want to win the next game, you stop Saquon Barkley.
I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I have not been a Hurts guy either. I'm not an Eagles fan in general. I hate the Eagles, but Hurts, I'm not a big Hurts guy. And to me, I with Hurts, it's kind of the same problem I had with Lamar initially. His first couple years, Lamar's kind of won me over a bit recently. But my problem with Lamar was I didn't think he could consistently like pass. Like if they had to pass the ball to win the game, like they couldn't do it. It was just pistol offense, short passes, people getting open deep because of the run ability. I just was not high on Lamar as a passer. I That was kind of my issue with him. Same thing with Hurts. I call Hurts. I've been calling him J Mid Hurts instead of Jalen Hurts. And we saw in the NFL, obviously, his first year was the COVID year. He only started a couple games, like the last few. The Eagles were a disaster that year, but he still had like a 50 something percent completion percentage, I think. The year after that, they squeaked it out. They kind of got hot at the end of the year. They went 9-8, but his passing numbers were not that great. They were pass heavy at the start of that year, and they had one of the lesser records in the league. Then when they got hot, they started running it. And then since then, he has the Avengers. He's got Brown, he's got Smith, he's got Goddard now, he's a God tier offensive line. And kind of the same thing with Lamar. Like you said, the Commanders, if they can stop the run, which that's obviously going to be a challenge, and make Hurts throw, I think they're probably going to the Super Bowl because I do not trust Hurts to consistently pass. I think he holds the ball too long. Like you said, took 7 sacks. That's nearly half his pass attempts. So yeah, I agree with what you said about Hurts. And one of my buddies is an Eagles fan, so I'm gonna have to mark this point in the video and tell him to look at it.
Yeah, I understand that it was a snow game. Like it seemed like this game, the ball was on the ground a lot. And I'll tell you, the Rams did not play a good game at all. I don't think they played that good because the ball was on the ground. I think Kyron Williams fumbled a
Oh
lot.
yeah,
Oh man, I mean, they set themselves up to lose this game. That was the problem with the Rams. It seemed like the Eagles were giving them every single chance to get back into this game, and they basically just
yeah,
didn't want to win. It's what it seemed like. And if the Eagles do that against a high-powered offense, exactly like the Commanders, who are on a hot streak, they're gonna lose, and that's just how it is. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just the Rams set up the Eagles to win this game, and there's really nothing more to say.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, they got that safety, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, here come the Rams. And then, yeah, Kyron Williams fumbled it. They had a couple 3-and-outs. And then when Barkley broke that second big run off, they went up 2 scores. Everyone's thinking, all right, well, that's the game. They went right down the field and scored like immediately. And that's the one thing with the Eagles defense, and that's like a flaw of Vic Fangio is the defensive play callers. He always has good defenses, but his prevent defenses are like god awful. It's like way too conservative, and the teams just score. And yeah, at the end of the game there, the Rams went right down the field. When Nakua caught that pass, I'm like, all right, yep, they're just getting everything. I'm like, they're actually going to score, win the game here. And then obviously they didn't.
Yeah,
But
too little, too late. Too little, too late was they scored and it was like, all right, well, let's shut it off. Game's over. It might have took them a minute to drive down
yeah,
80 yards and get a touchdown. I was like, are you serious? Now you do that?
yeah, I know.
I hate
And
it.
yeah, the Eagles, again, I don't like the Eagles, so maybe I'm being a hater, but their last three playoff wins, uh, the first one was against the Niners in the conference championship game 2 years ago when they lost to the Chiefs after. That was when Brock Purdy got hurt, tore whatever, he messed his shoulder up. They had Josh Johnson come in, they concussed him, so they had to Purdy go back in the game, physically unable to attempt to pass. So that's when number one against a quarterback that can't even physically attempt to pass because his shoulders all messed up. Last week against the Packers, they lost their top three receivers during the game. Christian Watson was out going into it. Pretty quick off the bat, like the first or second play, they lost their left tackle, I think. Um, and then this game, the snow game, like you said, the Eagles giving them every opportunity. The Rams turning it over. They're dropping passes. So to me, their past three playoff games have just been they've hit a lot of luck. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. It's crazy. I do want to say at the very beginning of this game, it was 4th and 1 on the Eagles, I think 11. And I think they decided to kick a field goal early in the game. In the beginning, they were playing good. Like they drove it down, they did all that, they tried to get momentum. But I think it was like 4th and short, 4th and 2, maybe it was like 4th and 2 on the Eagles 11, and they took a field goal. I disagreed with that call. I think if you're that close to the end zone, um, and you're ahead early on the Eagles, you just you can't play conservative. I mean, that's the playoffs, right? I understand you're trying to drive down, get into the end zone and do that, but you have to want to do that. Like you can't take 3 points when you're on the opponent's side of the field. Worst comes to worst, if you miss it, if you miss that 4th and 2, then at the end of the day, they have to drive 90 yards to go the other way, right? And if they're up 3-0, then okay, then you get your turn right back. So it doesn't make sense to me that Sean McVay decided to not go for that. And you're on the road, and you know that weather was accumulating later in the game, so you might have to change of how you're playing later in the game because it didn't start snowing, I think, until after like the first quarter, right? And it's dry weather, the playbook's still open. You might as well, I mean, I know it's cold, but you might as well go for it and try to score 7 there before the weather starts accumulating. And the second the weather accumulated, the Eagles kind of just took off because it was just a disaster of a game after that. I mean, we
Yeah,
had, like they have a better run game. Like the Eagles have a better run game. So why not try to, jump the gun on the weather, try to jump the gun on, this game situation and take advantage early. I don't really understand because I mean all options were open there when it wasn't snowing. And I think that's a big problem that Sean McVay probably looks back at this game and probably wants to redo that 4th down.
yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So that was, I think they were trailing. Then they kicked the field goal. They were still trailing. Obviously, there's plenty of game left. I think there was like in the second quarter. But yeah, if it's fourth and short, against this team, it's going to be snowing later. You're going to want to get as many points you can now. Hey, when you've seen what Washington's done in the playoffs, it could be fourth and 100, and they're going to go for it. And obviously, they're in the conference championship game. So yeah, just maybe some conservative coaching, but yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Um, then the last game that was Baltimore Buffalo. So we're probably gonna get cut off during
I
talking
was looking at that
during this
too.
game, but
Yep.
yeah, we had 4 minutes left. To me, I was pulling for the Ravens, because I don't like both of these teams as a Patriots fan, but I was pulling for the Ravens because I picked them to win it all, and B, I think they had a better chance at beating the Chiefs, and that's all I care about at this point. To me, they outplayed the Bills this game and they simply beat themselves. Bill Belichick basically said that too. Couldn't agree with them more. The three turnovers, that literally is the story of the game.
Yep.
And one of them was, at least one of them was just blatantly on Lamar, just bobbling it. The pick was on Lamar, that was bad. And then the Andrews one, that got punched out, but I think that was also kind of bad ball security by Mark Andrews. And then obviously he dropped that 2 point conversion. To me, I mean, talk about missed opportunities. This is what that game is for the Ravens.
Exactly. Missed opportunities and careless with the football. In the very beginning of the game, I think Lamar went deep on in double coverage. Is that what it was? It was like the deep double coverage throw.
But he like the only guy in the air is I think I forget who picked it off, but he was the only one in the area. There was like no one even near the ball. That was a Raven.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it's crazy because we both picked the Ravens and we both agree that they played better. It's just the fact of the matter is Bills capitalized on turnovers. Like that's about it. Like the Bills really did just capitalize and get points off that. And, the final score was 27-25. I mean, were the Bills the better team this game? I mean, they won. Were they a better team? Probably not. I mean, it's just the turnovers.
Yeah,
They're probably better because of turnovers. And what do we say? You can't make mistakes when you're this deep into the playoffs. It's not a recipe for success.
yeah. I will say though that obviously Mark Andrews get absolutely slandered online. I do think even if they would have gotten that 2 point version, I think the Bills would have ended up going out the field, getting the field goal range. But if the game did go to overtime, I definitely think the Ravens would have won. But I do think the Bills would have won the game anyway. Because as soon as they got that touchdown, I'm like, well, they just left a minute and a half left, something like that. I'm like, that's way too much time anyway.
Yeah,
But
and remember that there's over the overtime rules in the playoffs are different
oh
compared to
yeah,
the regular season.
right.
So both teams would have had a chance to, get the ball too. So you would have had four down territory downs to try to capitalize on whether or not you should kick the field goal or go for the touchdown. So the playoffs are different and compared to the regular season overtimes, and it's pretty crazy. And I think it would have been very cool to see a Baltimore Buffalo overtime game. But
Yeah.
I know Mark Andrews dropped it, but I mean, this game is not on Mark Andrews. I think I think it was good to see him go over to Mark Andrews and just be like, "Hey, you're good. Like, this is on all of us." That really is the case because this game was not just all on Mark Andrews.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the turnovers, Mark Andrews did one of them, Lamar did two of them. I don't think Lamar played as bad as a lot of people are saying he did. Uh, I mean, again, you can't take away those two plays, especially they were turnovers. But besides that, I think he played a really solid game. I mean, they went down the field, they scored immediately, and then the defense ate them in a third one. I'm like, here we go. And then they got that play to Shakir, and I'm like, shit. I'm like the Ravens could have just taken full control of the game there.
Yep,
Yeah.
we'll probably
Yeah.
get time back.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to cut us off here.
Me too. Me too.